Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on the call 6, two-stage calls, rules and procedure. My name is Nassima and I will be your moderator for today. And before we start, I would like to share with you some information as usual. So we are recording this session and it will be published on the IHI website and the B2Match platform. And we will also publish the presentation slide for all of you. Keep in mind that the call will be officially launched tomorrow, and all the links and details of how to apply will be published on the IHI website and the Funding and Funders portal. Today, I'm with my two colleagues, Bolivios, who is Scientific Operation Coordinator, and Desmond, who is a Legal Officer, to present this topic and to answer to all your questions. Regarding the question, please keep in mind to send them via the chat panel, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. So now I will hand over to my colleague Bolivios for the presentation.
Thank you, Nassima, and thank you also for organizing this webinar together with Sergio. Your help is really valuable. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, with my colleague Desmond, we'll present the webinar of Call 6, the two-stage call. And during the webinar, we will provide you some reminders, let's say, regarding the rules about the participation, funding, and intellectual property. We'll provide you also some information about from call to grant award. We'll go through together the call timelines in order to keep into consideration while preparing your proposal, and also some points to remember, which is really essential for the call application process. As many you know, IHI is a public-private partnership between the European Union, represented by the European Commission, and also the Trade Association, CONSIR, FPA, MedTech, and Vaccines Europe. This trade association came together to collaborate and to fund projects that are tackling key challenges that are preventing innovations from reaching patients. In IHI, we have a lot of funding, but it's not only about the money and the funding. The projects that we fund are cross-sectorial and multidisciplinary projects. And that is because we have to recognize that a single entity has no knowledge and resources to be able to tackle these challenges alone. And this is how the IHI is built on this concept, and this also into two-stage calls procedure. Here, in this webinar that we're running today is under the two-stage, and here are the key concepts that I would like the previous. Yes, thank you, Nassima. And here are the couple of key concepts that I would like to run through and introduce to you about the two-stage procedure. First is the rule of the pre-identified industry consortium, including also the contributing partners, if any. The pre-identified industry consortium actually align themselves to a real challenge in healthcare, and they agreed together across the different sector and commit resources, and they start together to develop a topic. IHI is supporting this pre-identified industry consortium to develop the topics, but please be aware that the topic text, the ideas, and the challenges are mainly driven by the industry consortium themselves. As soon as we have the topic finalized and approved by the governing board, then we invite new ideas from the applicant consortium. And what is this applicant consortium? Are mostly the entities such as research organizations, patients organizations, SMEs, other healthcare stakeholders who are actually requesting funding, and they submit their idea, in order to address the challenges as described in the topic text. And of course, this applicant consortium should complement the work of the industry consortium already presented in the topic text in the work program. The projects that we fund have an advantage because there is often a lot of funding available. And this is the scale, which is a key success for our program and is provided by leveraging the IHI funding with the industry consortium, especially at the second stage, where they will be obliged to form a full consortium, the so-called public-private partnership. Our projects and the outcomes of our project should be transformative for healthcare and meet the end users. They need to generate impacts that are going to benefit the patients and the healthcare professionals. Here you can see simply a schematic that summarizes the two-stage procedure, which is a very unique process for IHI. In Horizon Europe program, you will never see such a process. And this process is built exactly what I mentioned in the beginning on the concept of the public-private partnership. To summarize, based on this schematic, starting from the left side, as it has been already mentioned, the pre-identified industry consortium is driven the topic idea, the topic text actually, and the governing board is approving the topic text and is published to the participant portal and also in our website. During the stage one, we invite the applicant consortium, the ones who are requesting mostly IHI JU funding. These are academics, hospitals, regulators, patients organizations, SMEs, and for-profit legal entities. Do not forget that this is an online process, and the applicant consortium is requested to submit a short proposal of 20 pages. After the call submission deadline, the eligible proposals will go through the evaluation process that will be performed by dependent external experts. IHI is not evaluating the proposals. And during this evaluation process, the first ranked proposal for each topic will be invited to the second stage that together with the pre-identified industry consortium, they should submit a full proposal that will go in a second round of evaluation. Here it's important to mention that this is a go, no-go decision at the end of the second stage. There is no competition because only one proposal per topic will be submitted. As soon as we have the positive outcome from the second stage evaluation, the selected proposals will go through the grant agreement preparation phase, and it will be requested to sign the Horizon Europe grant agreement together with IHI. IHI is signing via the coordinator, with the coordinator. However, it's important also to know that IHI will require to the consortium to sign a consortium agreement prior to the grant agreement signature. The next slide simply summarizes the type of the two participants we have in the stage one and stage two call process. The first, let's say, type of participants is the pre-identified industry consortium. For the two-stage call, the pre-identified industry consortium is the one who is responsible for the 45% in-kind contribution. In contrary to the single-stage call, the 45% has to be collectively captured during the application process, which is only a single stage. Here, the applicant consortium will not be required to ensure the 45%. The pre-identified industry consortium, like mentioned, is the main drivers of the topic definition. They identify their in-kind contribution through expertise and assets, and this is mentioned and described in the topic text. They are not eligible for funding, and this goes without saying that they cannot participate with the applicant consortium. So to make it more simple here, applicants that, entities that are part of the pre-identified industry consortium cannot participate within the applicant consortium. The not pre-identified are the ones who are actually requesting JU funding. They are part of the stage 1 evaluation process. They are not involved in the topic definition. In some cases, some applicants that they didn't have that enough time to be part, let's say, with the applicant consortium. They can join, of course, during the gap via an amendment, within the grant agreement via an amendment. The applicant consortium, they're eligible for funding, but there's some exception. My colleague Desmond will touch upon this aspect later. And importantly, the applicant consortium cannot contact any member of the pre-identified industry consortium during the application process. Now we can see some highlights for the call 6. IHI is operating under Horizon Europe, and Horizon Europe rules for participation apply to our call for proposals and actions, except where specifically derogated. Like Nassima said, the call will be launched tomorrow. Hopefully will be available online during the morning, and fingers crossed that the IT tools will work properly. The submission deadline of the first stage is mid-April, 16th of April, more precisely, for the short proposal, and for the full proposal, it will be 10th of October 2024. Here, we have also some minimum conditions in Horizon Europe and also in IHI. We have only research and innovation actions, and we will need 3 independent legal entities established in different member states or associate countries. Important, one legal entity should be established in a member state. The page limit for the short proposal is 20 pages. And once again, please be aware that only one proposal, the first rank proposal, will go to the second stage. Regarding the contribution, IHI funding is indicated in each topic text. The maximum contribution is mentioned there, but also the industry contribution is said also in the call text. Be aware that the plan for dissemination, exploitation, and communication activities should be included in the second stage, meaning in the full proposals. And this also applies for the essential information for clinical studies. We can now move to this next slide, which is about the entities eligible to participate. And Desmond, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to spend just a few slides talking about the eligibility to participate and to receive funding as well. That'll be the first part. We'll talk about some general points, and then we'll develop that into a discussion about intellectual property. But this section first. As you can see from our first very colorful slide here, we basically say that any legal entity, regardless of its place of establishment, which is carrying out work, can be part of the consortium. So this can be boiled down as everybody is welcome to participate in IHI actions, regardless of where they're coming from. So we're going to talk about low middle income countries. We're going to talk about Horizon Europe Association, but at the end of the day, the key thing to remember is while everyone is welcome to participate in IHI actions as long as they are independent legal entities and can prove to be such, not everyone is eligible to receive funding, and we'll develop that in the following slides as we go. So on the next slide, we'll just talk about the general eligibility issues. The first point is in relation to getting people into the actual project and the consortium that they're actually forming. So as you can see from our main point, here, the consortium composition is absolutely essential. Now, Plivius has already alluded to this. For it to be an actual valid consortium, we need basically 3 entities minimum. We need one that has to be an independent legal entity, which is coming from a member state, an EU member state, and then we need at least 2 others. And one of they should be coming from either a different member state or an associated country. Now, I said minimum 3. 3 would be unusual for an IHI project. Usually, there's an awful lot, a larger number of participants, but that's considered the absolute legal minimum requirement. And when we talk about the EU countries, we're talking about the member states, including their outermost regions, and then also the overseas territories that are linked to those member states. And then when we talk about non-EU countries, these are basically countries which are not in the immediate EU group, but are linked to them via either the association agreements, which are concluded between the EU and those countries. The best example that we can give, and we're going to talk about it today, I'm sure, is basically the UK, who have signed a new association agreement between the UK and the European Commission, which basically means that going forward, the UK is considered an associated country. Or the low and middle income countries, which there's a very large list, they're another group as well. Then in relation to, we've got some bullet points here on the side in relation to some unusual situations or points that we need to note. As I said, for the association agreement countries, there's an association agreement in place which produces legal effects, and that allows then these rules to be written into things like the grant agreement and the larger policies. As of the 1st of January 2024, the UK is now treated as an associated country. That means that for this call, which is call 6, UK entities are welcome to participate, just as everyone else is, but they're also eligible to receive funding. We'll talk about that in a second. By contrast, Switzerland has not concluded an association agreement with the EU, and therefore legal entities coming from Switzerland are, just like everyone else, welcome to participate, but they are not automatically eligible for funding. Now, just as an anecdotal note, we do have a lot of entities coming from Switzerland, and they do participate, and usually they receive funding from their own government. Now, this remains very much the responsibility of that entity coming from Switzerland to sort this out with their own government, but we're informed that the procedure is quite straightforward, and to our knowledge, we haven't had anyone who had difficulty procuring this funding and receiving the eventual transfers. Go to the next slide. We're just having one slight technical error here. We'll bear with us 1 second. So the next slide just deals with some exemptions that we actually have, which basically reflect the current geosocial tensions that Europe wrestles with. So the first bullet point is in relation to the situation in the Ukraine currently. So under the rules, legal entities established in Russia, Belarus, or in the non-governmental controlled territories of the Ukraine, that's the east, they're not eligible to participate in any capacity whatsoever, either as beneficiaries, affiliated entities, or associated partners. They cannot participate and they cannot receive funding. And the second one is important to note, but usually is of less application to IHI actions, which is we are not entitled, we're not allowed to basically fund any entities that are coming from Hungary if those Hungarian entities are somehow involved in public trusts or public entities. So if you are a Hungarian participant, or you have a consortium in which a Hungarian participant is placed, please just make sure to check their status, make sure whether they are in fact a public trust or related thereto, because that actually may affect their funding. So with those 2 minor points out of the way, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so I was talking about eligibility for funding, so we'll come to that now. In relation to the funding rules, it's actually quite straightforward, as I said. While everyone's eligible to participate, funding is a little different. Firstly, to be eligible for the funding, you've got to be, as I said, from either an EU member state or one of the associated countries, and these lists are actually online. And as I said, the UK is the latest one to join. New Zealand has also joined recently, as well as Canada, for the purposes of IHIJU. By way of contrast, the US and Australia are not. So, as we have here in two boxes, which I'll cover very quickly, we say any legal entity in the member state, associated country, or the low and middle income countries, which is a very large list, eligible for funding. However, third country, not related to the EU, no association agreement in place, not eligible to receive funding, but there is an exception here, which we'll come to a little bit further along. Next slide. So to develop this further, firstly, in relation to the exceptional funding that I was talking about, while if you're coming, for example, from the US or from Australia, you're not actually eligible to receive funding. IHI does have a mechanism whereby you can apply for exceptional funding if you basically are deemed to bring something essential, something really, really valuable to the actual project. This can be in terms of research that we're not able to get anywhere else, or something which is unique and which is absolutely required for the project. If you do so, this should be noted in the actual proposal which is submitted, the short proposal. It will then be evaluated by the independent experts, and if they consider it indeed absolutely essential and valuable, then potentially you could actually therefore be cleared for funding. So if you're coming from a third country, this is something worth exploring with your wider consortium. Next slide. And then in terms of the two-stage call, as Plivia said, the rules here are slightly different from our first stage. So for the two-stage, in terms, it comes down to basically who you are, where you're coming from, and size. So the key point there is size. If you're coming from even an EU state and you're eligible to participate, you may not be eligible to receive funding if you fall afoul of the size requirement. So basically, the key point is if you are a legal entity and you have a turnover of more than 500 million euros per annum, and this may not just be your immediate company, but could also be a group that you're a wider group that you're a part of, then you will not be eligible for funding. But otherwise, if you're an SME coming from, for example, a European member state or an associated country or anywhere like that, then you are eligible for funding. Similarly, as Plivia said a few minutes ago, if you are in the pre-identified industry consortium. Now, to be clear, the pre-identified industry consortium are in the topic text. If you're in the topic text as a member of the pre-identified industry consortium, well, A, you shouldn't be in the applicant consortium in the first place, but B, then you would not be eligible for funding also. Next slide. And that's basically the eligibility done. Now we'll start talking about the IP for a moment. So I'm going to take a couple of slides just to talk about general IP rules. Now, I should specify here that because we only have a couple of slides, we're not going to be able to go into it in a huge amount of detail, but I think we can cover the main points. And then when we actually, if I don't give sufficient information here, then please feel free to drop a line to the legal team here via the functional mailboxes that will give you addresses at the end. Either the info desk or applicants, and the legal team can address your question in detail. So the first IP slide is this is one that we use for all our presentations because it quite neatly captures exactly what's happening. So on the left-hand side, you have the background identification. So when the project starts, prior to the project starts, there will be a negotiation between all the members of the actual consortium, and it will be clarified exactly which background is being brought by who and what it's actually going to be used for. And then this agreement, this will be agreed and written into the annex in the consortium agreement. And background, as you can see here, we're defining it as any data, know-how, or information, whatever its form or nature, including any rights, such as IP, that is held by the beneficiaries and needed to implement the action. So indeed, before every IHI project, there's always this negotiation stage where all the participants say, I am participant X and I'm bringing background Y, so beneficiary Z can do work on it and produce results. and we'll talk about results in a second. So getting the background right is extremely important right at the start, and listing it in the actual consortium agreement is extremely important, and then we can go from there. And then once the background is actually in the project and we get to the implementation stage, as you can see then, we use the background through implementation of the project to generate results. And then the results are basically the outputs from the actual action. The results are defined as any tangible or intangible effect of the action. So the idea, as I said, is that all the participants in the project are using the background which has been submitted to the project to generate results. Now, the last point here we have is in relation to the access rights. And to put it succinctly, the best I can say is that an access right is essentially a right of another participant in the project to use either your background or your results, either to get their own work done in the project or to do further work on it. So these access rights, they're enshrined in the actual grant agreement that everyone is going to sign, and it's going to say exactly what you can and must do in relation to access rights and what you can do with them. And also then those access rights will be further developed and mirrored in the consortium agreement that just the participants sign. IHI is not a signatory to the grant agreement, but we need the conditions in the consortium agreement to mirror the IP conditions in the grant agreement. That's in terms of the access rights, there's generally a standard set which are used. Plivis is going to talk a bit later about the consortium agreement and the templates that are there. So at this point in the actual program, access rights are reasonably well understood. The last point I would make on access rights is just to reassure everyone that while you are granting access rights to your assets to the other participants in the project, as I said, you're only giving it to them for two reasons. One, so they can generate their own work in the actual project, and B, so they can do further work on it. You are not allowing anyone to commercialize your project, your own results, or your own assets, or your own data. So you can bring your assets to IHI projects with reassurance. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to develop some of these points a bit further, in IHI then, we basically have some points here. So if you look at the second bullet point there, it says that the IHI IPR rules are derived from Horizon Europe Model Grant Agreement, supplemented by specific rules developed in the HE Annex 5, and were relevant to the applicable call conditions. So to just render that into a couple of easy sentences, unlike IMI2, which was our predecessor program, which had its very own specialized IP rules and its own legal basis, the Horizon Europe rules apply to IHI projects. So as long as you go into the IHI Model Grant Agreement, Article 16 is where the main section starts, then you look into Annex 5, and you find in Annex 5 the relevant section which basically details the IP rules for not just the joint undertakings, but also IHI. You will be completely confident. And then, as I said, we will modify where necessary in the applicable call conditions as well. So if you hit those 3 points, then you will be on good, solid ground in relation to your understanding of the IHI rules. In some actual projects, we basically maintain the right to object to transfers of ownership of results. There will be a reference to this in the present call topic text. What it means is that, and it's also in the grant agreement you're going to sign, what it means is that if you generate results in an IHI project and you wish to transfer those results to a third-party entity outside of the EU, for example, if you wanted to transfer to the US, because as I said at the start, the US is not an associated or member state, IHI maintains the right to object. So you notify us ahead of time. You say, I'm going to transfer these results or exclusively license them to the US. Are you okay with this? And IHI then takes a look at what's actually being transferred, whether the transfer is against the strategic interests of the EU, and we'll give you a decision on it. What I would do is, if you have particular concerns on this, please look at the relevant section in the grant agreement in Annex 5 and come back to the legal team if you have any further questions. More useful at the end of the project and different from IMI2, the end of the project will see the production of a results ownership list, and that basically lists and identifies all the results in the actual project and who has generated them, and that makes it easier to track, and also basically details joint ownership agreements and where results have been jointly generated. Lastly, and we get some questions on this, particularly in the previous rules and procedures webinars. So IHI, as part of the Horizon Europe, has really embraced now this idea of open science. So we use the open science dissemination model. I'm going to skip the second sub-bullet point there, affordable access provisions, because this doesn't apply to our current two-stage call 6. And then the third point is if you have project results which aren't going to be exploited by the owning beneficiaries, they can be matched with interested parties in the Horizon Results platform. I've never seen that in an IMI2 or IHI project, but nevertheless, the option is actually there. And again, just in red, as we said, the consortium agreement, which the participants are going to sign, you're going to basically ground all of these rules in the terms of the consortium agreement. Next slide. And back to you, Pligas.
Thank you, Desmond. Now we're moving to some more practical information with regards to the proposal template and the evaluation criteria. As soon as the call is published in the funding and the tenders portal, the coordinator will have, of course, access to start preparing the proposal. In the submission environment, can download the relevant documents for each topic. Of course, the first part of the proposal template, the part A, will be generated by the IT system. It's based on the information that entered by the participants, by the coordinator in this case. And of course, it can be updated anytime, but before the submission deadline. The part A includes the general information that consists the acronym, the proposal title, the duration of the proposal in terms of the months, all the details about each participant and the budget. Please be aware, for the budget, we don't have the breakdown of the different cost categories in the stage 1, but we have only one single amount, a global amount, and this refers to the contribution that the applicant consortium is requesting from IHI. Then we're moving to the second part of the proposal template, the part B. And this is the narrative part that should be uploaded in PDF. And it consists of 3 sections: the excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. And this corresponds to each evaluation criteria. Once again, the short proposal is maximum 20 pages. If applicants will provide more pages, the experts evaluators will be instructed to read only until the 20th page. Then the part of the proposal that is declared as an annex is the type of participant. This annex, even though will not be part of the evaluation and the independent experts will not assess it, IHI, though, will really help by this annex in order to meet our reporting obligation on the type of participants. Please, especially the coordinator, should gather carefully this information, fill in the annex appropriately, and submit it via the portal. And even though this is not evaluated by the experts, the system will not allow the coordinator to submit the proposal if this annex is missing. After the call submission deadline, all the proposals will arrive online to IHI via the portal, and then the evaluation process starts. In IHI, we usually, for each proposal, recruit 5 to 6 experts. In principle, according to the Horizon Europe rules, the minimum requirement is 3 experts, but due to the complexity of our call, the size of the budget, the technical nature of our project, the cross-sectorial cross-sectoriality dimension also is really important. So we have a lot of experts, in more than 5 to 6, to assess each proposal. The experts are instructed not to make any assumption regarding the proposals. They should evaluate each proposal as it is, and based on the evaluation criteria, excellence, impact, and implementation. The threshold for each criterion is 3 out of 5, but the overall threshold is 10 out of 15. So even if one proposal gets the minimum threshold, which is 3 out of 5 for each criterion, it will fail on the overall because the minimum there is 10. Now, we will provide you some tips regarding the evaluation criteria that we should take into consideration while we're drafting the narrative part, the scientific aspect of your proposal. Regarding the excellence, applicants should address all the objectives of the topic text unless written otherwise. You shouldn't pick and choose which objective you really need to address. Otherwise, you should be penalized. Importantly, you should clearly describe your methodology and how this methodology has been incorporated knowledge from different stakeholders. This is not about the consortium composition, but about the knowledge built into the methodology. Regarding the impact, importantly, the impacts should be measurable and meaningful. They're measurable in terms of estimates, and at the same time, we often see, especially during the previous evaluations, unrealistic impacts with no justifications. In this case, if the expected impacts are not properly addressed, proposals will be below threshold. Regarding the implementation, in this part of the part B of the proposal, we advise applicants to prepare clear drafts. For the first stage, is not necessary to list deliverables, but focus on the overall structure of your project, your work packages, and the overall objectives. Importantly, reflect to leave some space to describe how your consortium will fit with the industry consortium. And this is the big difference we have as IHI program comparing to other programs of the Horizon Europe. You should read the topic text carefully and the core conditions. You should read what exactly the industry is bringing to the project and show how you, the applicant consortium, has taken this into consideration, and you are aware that you are not on your own, is how you will build, based on your vision, the public-private partnership, and it's from where the cross-sectoriality and the multidisciplinary nature of the projects will be shown. And this element is really important for the experts to assess during the evaluation process regarding the implementations. Like I always say in the past, think like evaluators. The annotated evaluation forms are already available in our website. These evaluation forms will be given also to the experts. This will be, let's say, their checklist on how to assess your proposal. If you're thinking like an evaluator, what you would like to see in this proposal, then you might be able to address some gaps that your proposal might have at this stage. And then you can complete and provide a complete package to IHI for the evaluation. The successful proposals, the ones that are moving to the second stage, the first rank, and they will receive also a go decision by the experts on the full proposal, meaning applicant consortium and the pre-identified industries consortium together. And of course, when they have a successful grant agreement preparation process, they will sign the grant agreement with IHI. IHI is following the Horizon Europe multi-grant agreement, but the IHI specificities are reflected in Annex 5. This is signed electronically online by IHI executive director and the coordinator only. The other beneficiaries are signing the accession forms. I have already mentioned in my introduction that IHI requires from the consortium to sign a consortium agreement prior to the grant agreement signature. And this is a contractual arrangement between you, all participants, to set out your rights and obligations, especially the governance, liability, and IP. IHI is not part of the signatory, but please be aware that your consortium agreement should comply with the Horizon Europe multi-grant agreement. And this should be fully signed prior to the grant agreement signature, so it cannot be delayed. Indeed, in certain cases, the consortium agreement should be adapted to the specific needs for each IHI EU action. Even though IHI is not part of the consortium agreement signature, we provide some templates for the consortium, and these templates are available in our website. These templates are also given by our industry members. They have also their templates, but also template from the European Commission. Before closing the webinar today, some very few points to remember before before submitting your proposal. Importantly, read all the call relevant material that found in our website, in IHI website, in the call document dedicated area, but also you can find all the information in the fundings and tender portal. We have also our guide for applicants, which is a very comprehensive document where you can see lots of examples and a lot of information regarding the rules, but also the procedure. And also we have our frequently asked question. Ensure that all the information is explicitly described in order to allow the experts evaluators to assess against the evaluation sub-criteria, and of course respect the page limit. The proposal templates and the structure is already available to you, and the structure is given in order to be respected. So please use the exact guidelines from the proposal template, use the structure of the proposal template, because with this will help the expert evaluators to assess much easier and straightforward your proposal. This goes without saying that the coordinator should be financially viable. At this stage, I always advise the coordinator, especially the ones who are for-profit entities, private for-profit entities, to check if they're financially viable in order to undertake these tasks, because this will be part of our checks during the grant agreement preparation process if your proposal is selected for funding. And there, if you are not financially viable as coordinator, they will request you to change, and another partner of the consortium should undertake this task. So it's better to know in advance your financial viability before really organizing the consortium as a coordinator. Like Desmond mentioned, if you have any questions regarding the rules and the procedure, please don't hesitate to contact us via the applicant's functional mailbox, but also the info desk. Now, some timelines, some dates will be given to take into consideration while preparing your proposal. The call is expected to be signed by tomorrow. Then the submission deadline will be mid-April. Directly afterwards, we'll proceed with the admissibility and eligibility, but also during the scientific evaluation. And this will take place in May and June. By end of June, we'll inform the applicants about the evaluation results, and directly afterwards, we'll open the submission for the second stage phase. The submission deadline for the full proposal, where the applicant consortium, the winning one per topic, will meet with the pre-identified industry consortium in order to work together and prepare the full proposal in order to go through the second evaluation phase that will be between October and November. And hopefully in December, before the Christmas break, that will be the 2024 gift, the Christmas gift for the winning consortium, the go, no-go decision. Hopefully it's a go decision. In order to go through the grant agreement preparation process that should be finalized by mid-March 2025. Here, we list some really important documents relevant to IHI, but also one of the Horizon Europe. Our website, the call dedicated area section, is very well structured. You have all the information per type of call, single versus two-stage. And there we also link all the relevant documents with the specific guidance, also per call. So please go have a look and contact us if you need more information. Indeed, here you can always contact your state representative people appointed to IHI. The state representative group delegates are listed in our website, and you have the link here. And now this is my last slide. IHI is always looking for expert evaluators and reviewers, and I take this opportunity to also advertise this search from IHI side. So if you consider that you have expertise relevant to IHI program, please register in the portal via the link that I have in the website. And then you can send us in expert@ihi-europa.eu functional mailbox your profile number, your expertise, your interest in specific topics, and then we can consider you and we can collaborate together in future calls or review of running projects. Thank you. Nassima?
Thank you, Bolivius. Now, before we start the question session, I would like to still promote the session that we are holding now. So we had the Call 7 session last week, and we will have the pitching session linked to those 3 topics next week. But we will also have the two topic for Call 6 tomorrow. So we have one session in the morning and one session in the afternoon. If you are not registered yet, please do so, and we will be happy to welcome you tomorrow during the session. Now we can move to the questions. I can see that there are some of them in. I will hand it to you, Bolivius, for the question.
Yes, thank you, Nassima. So the first question from Vittoria. Can you please go through the 45% rule mentioned earlier with respect to the budget? Is the applicant consortium required to gather any financial contribution themselves? So the answer is simple. The applicant consortium shouldn't worry about the 45%. The applicant consortium is the one who is requesting funding. So the 45% is really secured and established by the pre-identified industry consortium, the resources committed, and the expertise is indicated in the topic text. Once again, the applicant consortium shouldn't be worried about 45%, and this is the reason why we don't have a budget in the proposal package. Only one global number of IHI requesting funding. This only the information of the budget required for the first stage. Hope this is clear. We can move now to the next question. Does the applicant consortium have to be finalized or signed before signature of the general agreement? Is it the same rule for call 6 and call 7? I assume by right saying applicant consortium, you're referring to the consortium agreement, maybe? I don't know, Emmanuel, if this is the case. If you're referring to the consortium agreement, yes, indeed, this is for call 6 and 7 and in general applicable for all calls of IHI. Consortium agreement should be finalized prior to the grant agreement signature for each project. If this is not what you're referring to, please write us in the chat box and I will revisit this question afterwards. The next question, how many proposals are usually submitted for IHI calls? Is the competition very high at stage 1? Unfortunately, this question, I mean, we don't have a lot of two-stage calls at this, I mean, for IHI, we had only one of the call 2 and 4. And this depending on the topic. So I cannot say if we have, I mean, the exact number. Now, is the competition high? Of course, this is a competitive call. But if I must say, and please Desmond jump in if you like, the two-stage procedure, because the proposal is shorter, the 45% is not a requirement, it's easier to address the challenges in terms of creating a consortium, an applicant consortium, comparing to the single stage. This is easier, but the competition is higher. So you have the pros and cons in terms of the competition. But I must say, yes, it's competitive, it's high, but if you do a really good job, I think for the short proposal for stage 1, you will be rewarded. That's for sure. The next question, is it desirable to have a consortium comprising more than 3 partners? So I'm now covering the first part of Anna's question. So since the beginning, I think I did on purpose in my introduction to give a little bit of what is an IHI, even though I believe the majority of the participants know what is an IHI. But what was important, and the keywords here, and the key message is the word cross-sectorial, multidisciplinary projects. Therefore, we don't consider that 3, at least, I mean, maximum 3 partners can really cover all the aspects described in the topic text. Of course, in the 2-stage, you have the pre-identified industry consortium, the industry partners that will be part at the end of the full consortium. Then you have more partners in the proposal. But if you consider that according to the topic text, according to the challenges described in the topic, the full value chain of the healthcare sector is sufficiently covered that can meet and tackle the challenges described in the topic text with at least 3 partners, then it's up to you, the applicants, to convince the experts evaluators. But in principle, we're expecting more in order to cover all the aspects described in the topic. And what about the funding? This one is simply indicated in the topic text in the indicative contribution section. In each topic text, there are different, let's say, sections. The indicative contributions, the maximum amount is covered over there. Please have a look. Now we're moving to the question from Carla. How many proposals will be admitted to the second stage and how many will be approved for funding? May a proposal that is under evaluation under RIA be submitted here? So this information was already provided in the beginning of the presentation where I summarized through the schematic the two-stage process. So here, only one proposal will move to the second stage, and this is the specificity for IHI program. Only one proposal per topic will be matched with a pre-identified industry consortium. And in IHI, we have only research and innovation actions. This is because we're operating under the pre-competitive research area. And then please, so it's one proposal per topic, the first ranked one. I'm just also now reading the question from Carla. If we have something else to add. Yes, I think it's covered. Now we're moving to the question from Emmanuel.
It's a complement of the question that
yes, complementing the question from before. It was specifically about whether the consortium agreement needed to be signed and effective before the signature of the grant agreement or just finalized. So slide 31 of Call 7 rules indicates that the consortium agreement has to be fully agreed before the signature of the grant agreement. Okay, I see now we're moving into details regarding the consortium agreement. Frankly speaking, the coordinator should confirm to IHI that the consortium agreement has been agreed and is out for signature, meaning that we might not see the signature, but at least we have received a confirmation that is agreed by your partners and the consortium agreement is under the signature process. So if even one point from the consortium agreement is pending, IHI will not proceed with the grant agreement signature. And this is because of the lessons learned we had in the past in order to ensure that we have a consortium that has already agreed about everything and the principles of their project that will help us ensure an efficient and proper project implementation. Then the next question is from Anna. Is it possible to involve in the first stage family representative associations? And if so, are they eligible for funding? Desmond, maybe I didn't want to monopolize the answer.
This question, really. Yeah, I'm presuming here we're talking about eco-face organizations. So if we're presuming on that basis, then we would regard it as a legal, like a normal legal entity like the other organizations. So in theory, as long as it's an independent legalized organization and it's based in the EU, then it will be eligible for funding. I would just say, if it's not eco-face that we're talking about, it's something else, maybe just specifying the questions and we can come back to it. But ideally, I think if it's not going to be COFACE, then it would be a European interest organization, which would also make them eligible for funding. So it should be fine. I think the key point would be what's its actual legal status, and B, which country is it actually coming from? And they'd be the two caveats I would have. Next question.
Yes, now with the question from Aurélien, is again about the consortium agreement. Indeed, we take note that in other framework programs, the consortium agreement could be signed after the grant agreement signature, but this is not the case for IHI. Indeed, we acknowledge that this requires time and efforts to be prepared prior to the grant agreement signature, but because of our projects, the cross-sectorial coming from different sectors, we need everything to be ready before the grant agreement signature in order to make all participants aware of their rules, their obligations about the projects, because we don't want to face any surprises in the future. So until now, in 3 programs, IMI 1, IMI 2, and with the grant agreement signed until now in IHI, this rule is simply respected by all consortia, and this is how we plan to move forward for the rest of the IHI calls.
I might just augment that answer slightly on a couple of points. One, so under Horizon Europe and the previous Horizon Europe programs, it was in the actual augmented grant agreement necessary that at the very least the consortium agreement should be finalized and that this should be communicated to the granting authority. And indeed, if it was confirmed that everything was finalized and the document was just being circulated for signature, then the Commission was prepared to proceed on that basis, and that was the way the executive agencies did it as well. Now, we've adopted a similar approach. I think because a lot of our projects involves quite sensitive intellectual property and people are obviously concerned about it, we need to make sure that all the obligations have actually been nailed down, particularly because obviously we're releasing so much funding on each project. So I think the compromise which Plivius has described, whereby we want from the consortium black and white confirmation that everything has been agreed and that an execution copy is just being circulated, gives maximum flexibility to the project in relation to timing, because then the signatures we're just talking about, the mechanics of getting the document from A to B, but it also means that everyone, including IHI, understands the rules, understands what's been agreed, and is proceeding on that basis.
Thank you very much, Desmond. Moving now to the next question. If only this question from Carla. If only one proposal moves to the second stage, will having the industry partner on board already at the first stage have priority or better evaluation with respect to the other proposals? The answer is simple. If you have industry partners in your proposal that are part of the pre-identified industry consortium, in principle, this proposal is ineligible because the industry partners from the pre-identified industry consortium cannot be part of the applicant consortium. This is the general principle.
Yeah, again, just maybe to augment it. So Plivius is, I completely agree with him. If they're one of the pre-identified industry consortium are there in the topic text, they should not be in the applicant consortium, and that includes subsidiaries. So even if one part of a large corporate group is in the proposal, in the text, in the pre-identified industry consortium, another part of the same corporate group cannot be in the applicant consortium, because that represents a fundamental conflict of interest. But the second point is, just in case Carl is asking, it is conceivable that we could have in the applicant consortium, a legal entity that would be considered, industry, because they are in some way associated with one of the private members, but they're not actually in the pre-identified industry consortium. In that sense, we could actually have such an industry entity there. But if they're there, it has absolutely no bearing upon how we would actually score, or how the independent experts would actually score the proposal. It doesn't give priority, because, as previously said a few times before, each proposal is scored and evaluated by independent experts, completely fairly, with a level playing field, and no one gets preference, and the same rules apply to everybody.
Thank you, Desmond. And I think it's really important by having this question, because we really need to transfer the message to the applicants correctly. Having industry in the applicant consortium, which are members of the association, in principle shouldn't be the case. These industry partners should be part of the pre-identified industry consortium, shouldn't be part of the applicant consortium. Now, by having the industry partners inside the stage one, will favor your application? No. The evaluation sub-criterion that I had already presented in previous slide in the implementation is requiring you, the applicant consortium, to describe how you see the fit between the applicant consortium and also the pre-identified from the topic text based on their expertise and their resources committed, and how you vision the public-private partnership. So there you have to elaborate in order to convince the expert that this TPP will work. So by having industry partners during the application phase of stage one will not favor your proposal.
Thank you, Bolivius, and thank you, Desmond. I don't see any more question in the chat box. So I think that we can end this session. So thank you again, Bolivius and Desmond, for your presentation and answering the question. Thank you all for your interest in this session. And all I can do is wishing you good luck for your proposal. Thank you very much again, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Nassima.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sergio.
Steve.